This brief video is based on the contextual definition of divine justice, or anger, as was suggested by Abraham to God on this very topic in Genesis chapter 18 and Genesis chapter 19. Abraham's premise of divine justice obviously parallels and complements God's premise, although Abraham did not understand that God was way ahead of him, as pertaining to the moral and spiritual state of Sodom's citizens. If God and Abraham had a differing view of justice, the conversation as recorded would not have been possible. Plainly stated, justice, as understood by both God and man, is when a fair and proportionate punishment meets a factually guilty individual. In the Bible, this is also called the wrath of God, but is God's wrath an eternal process, never to be extinguished? I think this has unnecessarily become a touchy subject, as many Christian scholars seem to boldly skip ahead in passages like the Sodom and Gomorrah incident, not allowing God to define his own terms as it relates to justice. Genesis chapters 18 and 19 very practically demonstrate the fact that the eternal scale of divine wrath against sin does not require an infinity to be suitably balanced. This truth is painfully obvious in the passage. Abraham is clearly speaking about God's justice or wrath. Genesis chapter 18 verses 20, 23 and 25. God confirms repeatedly this is the case as well, implying that, at least in principle, he and Abraham were on the same page. Genesis chapter 18 verse 25. This divine justice or anger is clearly expressed in eternal fire, according to Jude 7. Please note that this is inspired commentary on Genesis chapters 18 and 19. The eternal fire is out by the next day, and yes, the smoke was ascending up in Abraham's sight and is not still burning today. Genesis chapter 19 verses 27 and 28. This is the logical and clear lesson the historical narrative of Genesis 18 and 19 teaches us. God's anger or justice does not require an infinity of burning to be categorized as everlasting fire or divine wrath. Jude himself even uses it as the example for the eternal punishment of the wicked at the end. Occasionally, some have even debated this concept in the original Greek and Hebrew literature, but it is not necessary to debate in Greek what is clearly defined before our very eyes in English. The concept espoused in the previous video is naturally confirmed by biblical context and logically explained by apostles. God does not burn in his own anger for an infinity, nor does the Bible require this threshold to be crossed by sinners for God's wrath to be satisfied. Listen, friend. The wages of sin is not eternal life in hell, nor is eternal torment a contextually biblical view of divine justice. The lake of fire is not about God merely expressing his personal disdain for sin, but it clearly represents his divine act of eradicating it forever.